Howdy folks. For those of you that don't know, this is a buffalo skull. And this is a big old boy. This is a big herd bull. He was probably 10, 12 years old. And he got me down under a wire fence one day and my dog saved my life. So pull up a chair and I'll tell you the story about this old buffalo. Here's a story about a wonderful old cow dog I had. Mooner was an Australian Shepherd I had for 16 years. He was mostly a companion dog, but he'd been on a couple hundred pack trips, and he'd run more than a few bears out of camp and a couple grizzlies one time. And I worked cattle with him, gathering and such, but I didn't know if he was a real true stock dog until I finally got hired onto this buffalo ranch. That ranch had 1,200 buffalo running loose on the pastures, and I think we had a feedlot operation that held 200 to 400 head of 2-year-old bulls at any given time. So you don't work buffalo much, nothing like cattle. You can't help calve unless you got a death wish. You can't do anything with buffalo except once a year you gather them up, you do all your vaccinations for the state and such, and then you wean your calves off and then you turn them all loose. And that's the only time all year normally you would handle buffalo. But we had a feedlot operation, so every Wednesday we had to go up into the pens and gather a dozen head of 1,200-pound 2-year-old bulls and take them to the packing plant. So those pins were made out of highway guardrail, 3 rows, and they could tear those pins down, to give you an idea how tough buffalo are. So one morning I just walked up, we called it Thunder Alley. We had a 100-yard alleyway where we'd gather buffalo out of those pens and take them down to the sorting chutes and the tub and all that stuff, and then load them into a trailer. And I was just up there checking on them one day, and here's this old cow, and somehow she tore open the gate to the pasture, and she's in what we called Thunder Alley. Now, Thunder Alley didn't have great fences. It was 8-foot high woven wire, but it was just on T-posts, and it was pretty shaky. So normally a buffalo would just run like hell when you come towards them. So me and old Mooner were walking down that alley, and that old cow started trotting to the gate, and I thought no problem, and all of a sudden she panicked. And we had a saying on the buffalo ranch that you can make a buffalo go anywhere he wants to. And she decided to go over that fence, and it was 8 foot high. And I've seen big 2,000-pound herd bulls clear a 7-foot gate, but she didn't make it over that 8 foot, and she got tangled up in the top of the wire and pulled that fence down in the alleyway. And of course she's bellowing and snorting and throwing her horns, and she's all tangled up in that wire. So I'm standing there thinking, how in the hell am I going to get her cut loose and back out? And while I'm sitting there trying to think what to do, I heard this thunder and hooves coming and a low roar, and I look up, and here comes a herd bull that was in that alley too. That's this big old boy here. And there was nowhere to go. I mean, nowhere to go in that alley. So I tried to go up that wobbly old 8-foot woven wire fence, and I got up there a good ways, and here he come, and he starts leaning into that wire, and he was probably 6-8 yards from me, and thank God he got a horn into that wire. And it slowed him down, and he went to jerking. Well, he pulled that whole fence down, and I'm underneath it. So here I am in the middle of Thunder Alley. I'm underneath a woven wire fence like this, and there's a 2,800-pound pissed-off buffalo about 8 feet away. And thank God he's hung up in that wire. And I had a good view of him laying underneath him. Their eyes just turn blood red when they get pissed off. And old Mooner, I'd never seen him heel or bite a cow in the face or anything. And he come out of nowhere and went to biting that bull on the hind feet, and he's kicking at him. And he'd hit him again, and finally that bull would lift his head and swing around to hook at that dog. And when he'd lift his head up to hook that dog, that fence would come off me, and I'd get about that far out from underneath it. And then he'd turn back to me, and he's trying to get loose of that wire, and I'm pinned under it. Here come old Mooner again, and I don't know how many times he did that. Maybe 6. It seemed like 30 minutes under there, and I'm sure it was less than a minute. But I'd had a friend killed just 2 weeks earlier by a buffalo, and he had 40 holes in him this big. So it was about as scared as I've ever been, and I've been scared a time or two. I've been hit by lightning, mauled by bears, helicopter wrecks, falling off cliffs, but this was the most terrifying thing ever. And finally he lifted his head the last time, and I got out from under that wire, and I run right over that cow. She's tangled up right across the alley, and I just ran over here and dove into an orchard and got the hell away from that buffalo. And here come old Mooner. That buffalo was still fighting that wire, and I didn't even mess with either one of them buffalo. I took that dog right down to the house, got a big buffalo ribeye out of the freezer, threw it on the broiler, and I sat him at the table and fed him with a knife and fork every bite of that thing. He was quite a dog. Well, I spent 9 years on that buffalo ranch. I called myself a buffalero, not a cowboy. Cowboy handles cattle. We buffaleros, we handle buffalo. I got a bunch more stories about wrecks and runaways and buffalo that would leave the ranch, so hit that subscribe button and come on back and hear some more stories about buffalo.